Hello, everybody. The end of the 2024 season at Kings Island is here, and we thought, what better way to recognize some of the departments at Kings Island than letting our listeners, this is a show for Kings Island fans, let our listeners vote for who they thought were the top in each category. Hello, everyone. Alongside Ryan, sir, I'm Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast by Kings Island fans for Kings Island fans because that's who we are and that's who we care about. Hey, let's kick this off by thanking our Prestige members. So thank you so much to Aaron Bort, 330T, Logan Lipper, Brian Hauser, Lil Mac 21, Miss Mandy, 1983, Jacob Fix, Damon Barnes, and Stephen Hornack. Thank you guys so much for supporting Tower Topics at the highest level. That's the Prestige level. If you want to be involved in Tower Topics, there's a link in the description. All members get early access to the shows, exclusive contents, exclusive live streams for members. Some tiers even get some free stuff, so it's worth checking out. Again, link in the description if you're interested.
Yeah, so Ryan, for the 2024 season, this is the inaugural year that we'll give out the Tower Topics Award. We can expand on this in future years, but it was done through our X. We hope that you follow us. It's Tower_Topics. And, we threw it out to you. We let you vote for who you thought was the best of the best at Kings Island this year.
Yeah, you ready to kick it off with the first category?
I'm ready.
All right, so let's start off with the first category is Best Winterfest Menu Item. And the nominees were the pork chop sandwich, the mac and cheese bar, the holiday meatloaf burger, and the turkey ball. Don, you need one of those envelopes you can tear open.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and the winner is the holiday meatloaf burger.
Shocker
there. Yeah, I think I would have voted for that one too.
I think I would have as well. The turkey ball, I haven't gotten to try yet, but I've heard pretty good things about
outstanding.
that.
It's interesting. Interesting.
Did you try the pork chop sandwich yet?
Yes.
Is that good?
Very, very good.
Okay, cool. And the mac and cheese bar, that one is like, it's really good, but it's not as new as the other things, so it's kind of easy to overlook it. Although I do greatly enjoy the mac and cheese bar. So congratulations to all the people involved in the holiday meatloaf burger, in winning the 2024 Tower Topics Award for Best Winterfest Menu Item. All right, next category. Our next category is going to be Best Kings Island Family Ride. And the nominees are the Grand Carousel, Snoopy Soapbox Racers, Kings Island and Miami Valley Railroad, and Cargo Loco.
And the winner is Snoopy Soapbox Racers.
I disagree.
I would not have voted for that. It was close between Snoopy Soapbox Racers and the KI and Miami Valley Railroad. I would have probably voted for the Grand Carousel.
I probably would have as well. The thing though is like I started visiting Kings Island when I was probably on the upper end of where Snoopy Soapbox Racers would have been appropriate. But my little brother started visiting when he was 4 or 5. And I remember he wanted to ride the train over and over and over. So I would probably say that if there's one ride that you guarantee the kid's going to love, it's going to be the train.
Kings Island can claim Snoopy Soapbox Racers won something this year.
They can, but not the train. Okay.
Next
category. The category is Best Kings Island Department. We've got the nominees are Entertainment, Operations, Food and Beverage, and Merchandise.
And the winner is Operations.
Cool. I don't know how you would choose that.
Rides. I feel that they're voting for, the rides. So I think if you're somebody, then that's your main reason that you go to Kings Island is for the rides. You might lean that way. To me, my vote would have gone to Food and Beverage.
Yeah,
I think this year I thought they had an amazing year, so I would have given it to Food and Beverage. The great thing about this is the votes, it's not stacked. You can't go in every day and cast your vote. It was a one-time vote that you had to cast, so nothing was stacked. But congrats to the operations department.
Yeah, and to be fair, so Food and Beverage came off of what I thought was a rough year last year. I thought they had a very good year this year. Again, I ate the International Restaurant, and it was the best meal I'd ever had up there. So I think that maybe they're still kind of like, oh, the food sucks now, and like, okay, but they deserve to be recognized. Merchandise is, it's kind of like the people in merchandise are fantastic. Like I remember a friend of mine cut themselves and they were bleeding, but not like bleeding enough to like bother to walk over um to first aid, but it was like enough that like they were holding it, and one of the girls was like, "Oh, I've got a band-aid in my purse. Let me go get that for you." And it's like she gave her one like just out of the kindness in her heart. She could have sent her off to. So I think those employees are fantastic, but it would be very difficult to say like merchandise needs to do this to win. You know, entertainment's a victim of the budget cuts. Like, let's just say what it is. They had a fantastic year. They had great shows. The problem is that people look back and all they see is that the Kings Island Theater was dark for most of the summer.
Right.
Okay. Next one up. This is a tough one to choose, I would say, but best Kings Island event. The nominees are Grand Carnival, Halloween Haunt, Tricks and Treats, and Winterfest.
And the winner is Winterfest.
That's a shocker.
It was close between Winterfest and Halloween Haunt. I would have voted for Winterfest, but I mean, we've talked about this, Ryan. I've said it on the podcast. I've said it on social media that in all the years they've had Winterfest, you go back to 1982, the park has never looked better than it does this year for Winterfest.
Yeah, it looks great. Oh, you got the new Winterfest way and stuff. I think maybe when we do this in the future, because I really like this idea, but maybe we can make more make it more distinct for the particular year, so it's an apples to apples comparison, like best show of this year. And I don't know if you have that in the categories or not here.
It's in
I
there.
guess you have Winterfest, but because I feel like maybe even like which section had the most energetic ride ops. Like there's a lot of opportunity here to do this, sort of thing.
Yeah. Inaugural year, you got to start somewhere, right?
We do, but Winterfest I think was the correct choice. I think Winterfest is still their home run. I think that it would take, if they wanted to make Halloween Haunt as good as Winterfest, they would be making Halloween Haunt as good as Horror Nights. Let's put it that way. Because I think Winterfest, of course, it has deficits where it does. Its shows aren't as good as Disney or Universal or whatever. But as far as the look and feel of the park, I think it's better. I think it's better than the parks down south. Cool. Next category, we're going to do Best Kings Island Winterfest show. And the nominees are Tinker's Toy Factory, The Mistletones, Yuletide Follies, or Songs of the Nativity.
And the winner is Tinker's Toy Factory.
Quintessential staple show. Very, very good show. It's good this year too.
Very, very good. I was surprised with the voting. I mean, Mistletones, Yuletide Follies, and Songs of the Nativity, they were all right about the same in the number of votes that they garnered, but the runaway winner was Tinker's Toy Factory, and that would have got my vote.
Yeah, and this runs into the same problem where it's like the Mistletones and Songs of the Nativity are kind of like you have to look for them, essentially. And Yuletide Follies is new. So those three start off with a deficit, but probably everybody voting had at least seen Tinker's Toy Factory. Cool. Best summer show. Gazillion Bubbles, Retrospect, Off the Rails, and Country Crossroads.
And the winner is Gazillion Bubbles.
Yeah, that one crept up. And that if you ever want a testament to me admitting when I'm wrong, I dumped on that show so much.
Yeah, both of us. We just thought because it was such a short run, it wasn't going to get enough time to build a following. We went on and on about that, but it packed the theater every single day, and it got extended for a couple weeks. Although it would not have got my vote. I would have given it to Country Crossroads.
Country Crossroads was a very good. It's funny because whoever, I don't know if that's internally produced or not, but the guy that produced the country shows from like 2008 or so on, is very good at them. But when it comes to country shows, like they start to blend together. But this one like had a different feel to it, a different energy. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I choose Country Crossroads. That would be tough because they were all four really good shows, you know.
They were.
But Gazillion Bubbles, I feel like was the come from behind. They were the comeback cats.
Surprise winner, yes. And by
They
a long
certainly
shot.
were.
I mean, they dominated the voting on that one.
Yeah. The next category is Best Kings Island Roller Coaster. The nominees are The Beast, Diamondback, Mystic Timbers, and Orion.
And the winner is The Beast.
Yeah.
I'm giving my vote to The Beast out of this group.
Yeah, but that's the thing though, because like my favorite ride at Kings Island for ride experience is Diamondback. But what are we summarizing here? Because Diamondback has not had the historical impact that the Beast has. You know,
No. But maybe next year Diamondback wins. Who knows?
I know. I'm not saying it's not fair. I'm saying that it would be a tough decision.
And nobody gets stacked the votes. It was a fair vote. You got one shot to vote, and you know the Kings Island fans who listened to our show all felt The Beast was the winner here.
Yeah, but it's also one of those things where it's kind of like if somebody was here from England and they had time to ride one ride and let's say any ride in the park, let alone these, you'd have to direct them to the Beast because they can ride stuff similar to Diamondback, similar to Mystic Timbers, and similar to Orion, but the Beast is unique in itself. You know? Okay.
Final category.
Final category is Best Kings Island Restaurant. And the nominees are Carney Barbecue, Grain and Grill, Island Smokehouse, Miami River Brewhouse.
And the winner is the Miami River Brewhouse, home of the pub burger.
I wonder if you influenced that decision with your talk of the pub burger.
I don't know, but I mean, really, when you look at it, I thought Island Smokehouse would do better in the voting than it did. You know, it only garnered like 1% of the votes, but I think the food there is outstanding. It's amazing how good it is, and nobody talks about that one. But yeah, I would have voted for Miami River Brewhouse.
Me too. It's got one of the, I wouldn't say the biggest variety because really Coney Barbecue technically has more options, but there's something to say about being able to sit down and actually have like a meal and stuff rather than fast fooding it and sitting at a picnic table, you know?
Right.
I feel like Kings Island needs a few more sit down restaurants like that are indoors and air conditioned and so on. Because if anything, if they're going to be operating during Winterfest, they could use more indoor spaces.
Something like the Grand Pavilion at Cedar Point would be outstanding at Kings Island, wouldn't it?
I really think it would. It would have to be over the front gate. We've discussed that in the past.
Now with these, the first time we've done these awards. So for Kings Island, congratulations to all the award winners. We have nothing for you other than recognition. But this is one of those things that, down the road, Ryan, and, there's changes in personnel and, they'd want us to come out. This is the kind of thing you could do a live show, with, and, we could have the winners, revealed at Kings Island, have representatives from the different departments that get nominated, they come up, accept their award, all that kind of thing. So I think it's got potential down the road.
I think it could be a lot of fun, but nobody asked me these questions. Okay.
Right.
Dear Lord. Okay. We'll be right back with your stories. Don, read them up.
Well, this Kings Island story comes from Jason B. He's from Moro, Ohio. He says, in 1986, as a graduation present, my parents surprised me with a brand new black Trans Am. How nice. It was sleek, powerful, and everything I dreamed of. A few days later, still riding the high of both graduation and the new car, I decided to take a couple friends from high school to Kings Island to celebrate. When we arrived, security directed me to a parking spot, which is now the area reserved for Prestige Pass holders. We spent the entire day in the park riding coasters. It was one of those perfect days you never forget. But when we left the park and walked to where I had parked, my stomach dropped. My Trans Am was gone, stolen. We flagged down security and I filed a report with them and the police, but deep down, I had a sinking feeling it was gone for good. 38 years later, my black Trans Am has never been found. Every time I go to Kings Island, hear the name Kings Island, I think about that car. What started as one of the best days of my life became a bittersweet memory. To this day, the sight of a black Trans Am on the road stops me in my tracks. And while I'll always love Kings Island, part of me can't help but wonder where that car is now.
Heavy. Can you even steal cars nowadays?
It's harder, but I guess it
Well,
can be
no,
done.
I mean, I know that physically can be done, but like my car has like I've got an app where I can locate it at any time. So they'd have to figure out how to disable that. And I have like several devices with AirTags in the car.
Yeah. So in
So I'd
today's
be
world,
trying.
he would have found where his car was. That would have been easier to track down where it's at. So, but I guess back in 1986, that technology wasn't there. So, somebody was able to, wire the car and get it started, or maybe the keys were left in the car. We don't know what happened there, but I mean, that'd be terrible. I
Mhm.
mean, what a graduation present, a black Trans Am. I mean, that would be really cool to have. And then just a couple of days later, you go to Kings Island. The last thing you think of when you go to Kings Island is that your car is not going to be there in the parking lot when you come back. So I can't imagine, what that would have felt like.
Yeah. No, I know I have heard from like just random security people that every once in a while they catch people walking around trying to see if like cars are unlocked, which I'm sure happens everywhere. Your
Yeah, it doesn't
local
matter where you
Walmart.
go. Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you go.
Do you remember like do you remember a car ever being stolen from the park that you heard about? Like I don't want to say like from an official capacity when you work there, but like in the modern since 2000 or so. Have you heard about that? Because it feels like that would be a really bad place to do it. On one hand, you would like if you saw somebody get out of their car, they're going to be gone for hours because they're going into the park. On the other hand, if anything goes awry, there's going to be a lot of people around you that turn their head and all of a sudden you're trying to hotwire a car, you know?
No, I don't recall that coming up. That would have been something I would have been advised of, in my,
Mhm.
my PR role, because certainly, that had the potential to get, on the news in today's world. It would have been all over social media. Someone stole my car, and they would have had pictures of it, and it would have been something that, I would have had to address with the media. But no, I don't recall ever, hearing that during the 17 years that I worked there. And I don't recall uh, all the years I was there as a pass holder, ever being told by somebody, that I knew there, whether it was in security, marketing, whatever, position they had there, about what happened. Now, cars being broken into, yeah, I heard about those things.
Right.
Both before I started working there and when I was working there, you'd hear about the break-ins and that, but never a car being stolen.
Yeah, like I imagine a smash and grab is probably very doable in today's world. But as far as hot wiring a car and I just like my car, it's just if you try to do it, it would go nuts,
Yeah, yeah.
you
Nowadays,
know?
it's so much harder to do, I'd
Yeah.
imagine. So a lot of people, especially live like in the Tampa area, where that's kind of a hobby for some people, stealing cars. A lot more difficult to do now than it would have been, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, they're trying it's kind of like when they put up those little things where so you can't skateboard down certain sidewalks. All these security measures are messing up kids that are just trying to have a good time
Yeah.
stealing
But
cars.
no, thanks for that story. Thanks for sharing, Jason. I'm sure it wasn't, a story that you look back fondly on. That, like you mentioned, it's still bittersweet,
Mhm.
for you whenever you hear the name Kings Island. You're going to think about that.
Yeah, and if you've got your own Kings Island story, was your car stolen from the parking lot? Did somebody mug you? Or was it a happy story, which we typically go for? Uh, Send them to Don Helbig at themeparksbydon.com. In the subject, put story for TT so we can find it easily. We'd love to hear your Kings Island stories. We'd love to read them on the air and find out some of your deepest memories. And they don't have to be happy. They don't have to be sad. We've had some real bummers. We've had some like real joyous ones where Kings Island has changed people's lives. But
Yes.
Don Helbig at themeparksbydon.com. Subject Story for TT. And you know what, Don? We'll be right back with the listener questions. Okay, I'll read the first one. Mark P from Westchester, Ohio. He said, if Kings Island built a new wooden roller coaster that broke all existing records for height, speed, length, airtime moments, and whatever you call it, or sorry, and airtime moments, what would you call it and why? What would you call a ride that broke all the records?
This is a good question. My specialty, naming rides. I would go with wooden coaster, right?
Wooden coaster specific, yeah.
I would go with Monarch.
Okay.
And the reason I would go with that, number one, I think the logo, being a lion could be, spectacular with the logo. I think
so. You monarch as in
king.
like monarchy, not monarch as in
monarchy, king.
Got it. Yeah.
King of the board kind of thing. So, and if this was going to be the longest, fastest, breaking all kind of existing records, shattering the beast records, it is the king of Kings Island. So I would go with the name Monarch.
See, the name that I've always liked that they never truly used in earnest is the Champion. I thought, like,
that was never a name.
I know, but I'm saying like that's a name that's floated around the park. For those of you who have no idea what we're talking about, the rumor is that one of the names they considered for the beast was the Champion. It's not true. It's an urban legend.
No.
But
let me just explain real quick what that was.
Yeah.
It didn't have a name when they announced this on July 10th of 1978, when they announced they were building the world's longest wooden roller coaster. It's going to shatter all the records. The way they described it was, it's going to be the champion of all roller coasters. So years later, everyone thinks, oh, it was going to be called Champion. No, it was never going to be called Champion. It was just going to be the champion of all roller coasters. And it was. And still nonetheless, is, I think, in some people's books.
I like the name the Champion. And that's one thing I would push for with that. I would make it the Champion, and I would have a lot of stuff in gold and so on, kind of like gold, think like gold medals. And the cool part about the Champion is that you can build the lore behind it. You can make it story driven however you want.
I don't mind that.
Yeah. So if the Champion is the fastest cheetah, if the Champion is the bear that like the almost like the Big Bear Mountain, it's the bear that nobody can find. You can call it whatever you want, but the Champion definitely implies biggest, fastest, tallest, that kind of stuff. Or grandson of Beast. I like that too.
Grandson of Beast. Okay. All right. Next question comes from Beth Ann M of Indianapolis. She says, I just want your honest thoughts on Kings Island's food service this year. Honest thoughts. I think we've been giving it all year. It's been amazing. I think they've done a phenomenal job.
Yeah. It's and the sad part is we were waiting for that. We were just waiting for that whip to crack. We were waiting for it to be like, this food's terrible, or portions are tiny, or anything like that. And that just hasn't happened, and it's been, I was so deflated with how I felt the food was last year, where it was like better than like it was like in the 90s, and like, but not as good. Like ever since like the era of like Chef Nate, when was that? Like 2008 or so?
Yeah. 2000, 9 to 15, 16 range.
So that's when the park turned a corner, because that's when we got like Red's Hall of Fame Grill, which is still my favorite restaurant in the history of the park. Those ribs. Oh, but anyway, oh my God. But since that era, I thought last year, 2023, was the weakest. And, we obviously had kind of the rightful person to point our guns at, and that was Chef Perez, because he was the variable. But he's still there, and the food is very good this year. The portions are good, and the menu items have been like good and creative and stuff. So I'm glad to be wrong, because I think we were both pretty sure that it was going to be a bad year for food, and that it might have been kind of like everything that Chef Major builds is destroyed now, and it hasn't been. He's been able to build on that. So hats off.
I think in the 52 years that I've gone to Kings Island, that goes back to year one, that the culinary experience at Kings Island has never been better than it was this year.
I would say there's an argument for that. in my experience.
Yeah, and you got to remember, 70s and 80s, it was, hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza. I mean, you could go up in the international restaurant and get a different type of meal, but throughout the park, that's basically what you had, burgers, hot dogs, hamburgers, um, pizza. And then they started, when Chef Nate got there, now there was, the chicken shack, with the different chicken sandwiches, the spicy chicken sandwiches, and they started to evolve from there. But it's really good. Um, I would love, and we've talked about this, Ryan. I would love for uh, Kings Island to start getting, the recognition it's due for how good the culinary experience is. It's really been elevated, in recent years, and right now, I mean, it's as good as it's ever been.
Yeah, it's so funny because I remember I don't want to blame Paramount. So when I say like under Paramount, because it was under Cedar Fair for a while too, and probably before Paramount, but it was like you ate at the park if you really had to. Like if your blood sugar was dangerously low, that's when you like plug your nose and eat the cheeseburger that you'll pay for later. But nowadays it's like I remember it being the weirdest sensation where me and my friends were sitting around in like February and we're like, God, I could go for a pub burger right now.
Yeah,
It was such a
yeah,
weird thing to crave park food. It's just yeah, so I would say fantastic year. Best year ever, argument for that, you know.
I think so in my book.
Okay. Next question, Tim B from Norwood. He said, is it better to have a ham prime rib or the holiday meatloaf burger at Blitzen's Brew House for a New Year's Eve dinner? Is there ham and prime rib at
I don't know if he's talking about just in general or talking about at the park. Maybe he's talking about going up in the international restaurant. I don't know. But if you're talking about those different food items there, I mean, for me, what's better on New Year's Eve than the holiday meatloaf burger? I think
well,
that is the best burger
yeah,
that I've had at the park ever.
to qualify, I'm not a big ham fan and I do not like prime rib. So the meatloaf burger would probably be my choice as well. Um,
I do all three, um, but there's something about that meatloaf burger that I mean, it's a quality menu item. I mean, it is of all the food I've had, it's the best of the best.
Absolutely. Next question.
This comes from Bill R. from Cincinnati, and he says, "Does Charlie Brown have street cred?"
Yes, but not the Charlie Brown you're thinking of. The one that has street cred is
I know where
the
you're going with it.
is the one that started the fight in Coney Mall that one night that had the season pass under the fake name.
I remember that. Yes. No, Charlie Brown's a cool character. He's probably my favorite Charlie Brown, or of all the Peanuts
He's
characters. It's
oh
Charlie
no,
Brown.
no. The other Charlie Brown's my favorite Charlie Brown. But as far as Peanuts characters are
Yes,
no,
the
Snoopy's the
Peanuts
best Peanut
characters.
character. He's a beagle. Um, I like Snoopy, I like Franklin, and I like Schroeder. Those are my three favorite. I think we've been through this before,
Yeah, yeah. But no,
but
yeah, I agree with you. Charlie Brown has street cred. Come on.
he's gotta. Okay. God. All
Next
right.
question.
Rick D from Cincinnati he said, "The new Six Flags strikes again. What are your thoughts on Anaconda at King's Dominion being retired with no notice, no chance to get a last ride? It's like they think if they don't say anything, nobody will notice. Cowards."
Um, well, first of all, I think that it's wrong if you
Mhm.
know in advance that these rides are going to be retired to not give your guests that last opportunity to visit the park and get in those
Sure.
last rides. For some, it might be their favorite roller coaster. It might have been uh, the first roller coaster they ever rode. They might have been on the inaugural ride crew. We saw that with Vortex. Members of the inaugural ride crew, came up to get in the last ride. They were on the last train. So little things like that. I mean, there's a lot of memories associated with every ride in the park. When you sit in a corporate office and you're looking at the bottom line, you may not think about memories and how they, you know, what it means to people and that. So I think they need to give a little bit more notice about that. And I 100% disagree with the way they're doing it, and it's being dug up, by coaster enthusiasts, and that they're finding the permits and things to tear down these rides, and that's not the way to do it. You need to be. They need to hear it from the park first, I think. And the way that the new Six Flags has done it, what we saw with Great Adventure, what we're seeing, in King's Dominion, the park still hasn't said anything about it, but that was kind of a, hey, Merry Christmas, King's Dominion fans, we're removing this ride. Just the wrong way to go about it.
Do you think? I mean, we've had a week. We talked about this. Do you think Kings Island's safe from this, or do you think that it's just a matter of time until we find?
Oh, it's a matter of time. I mean, it's.
For
I think
2025.
I think there's things earmarked pretty much. You go across the portfolio, of all the different parks. I mean, what don't we need? I think that's the way that they look at it, and I think there's going to be some casualties there at Kings Island, whether it happens right after the 2024 season. We find out somebody digs up something that there's been permits filed to to tear these rides out, or it's something that the park maybe they surprise us and they let people know. But if it's a ride that was operating this year, they still didn't give anyone the last chance to ride. And that's still, even if the park says it themselves, they're the first ones to come out with it. It's still wrong that you didn't give anybody the last chance to ride. But yeah, I think something will go. If not this year, then I think right after 2025, we'll see maybe 2-3 rides go.
I'm wondering. See, they're kind of danged if you do and danged if you don't, because if they remove other rides for this family thrill ride, okay. Forget if it's the Zamperla thing that we're predicting. If they remove anything, or especially if it's a coaster, then at that point it's like you're removing rides to put in a new ride, but you have that big plot of land right in the back of the park where Vortex was, where you could have put it without removing anything. But then they're also caught in that conundrum of what you've mentioned all along, where if it's going to take up the land where the Vortex was, it's got to be akin to the Vortex.
It's got to be, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't know that. You can throw it out the window now that that means anything in the corporate
Oh
office.
no, it certainly does not.
That I don't think they care about history and tradition and legacies and all those things. I don't think they care. I think it's just now they're the person it used to be that you cater to your guest, but I think now you're catering to Wall Street, and that's the way that it's going right now, and it's unfortunate, but there's little regard on what the guests think about some of their favorites being removed.
And the sad part is we're seeing it in real time, where they're making decisions that in 10 years they'll regret and they'll try to make up for. Think like antique cars and all this stuff of
Flying Eagles.
right, exactly. Things of that sort. Do you think that King's Dominion knew that this ride was not going to reopen when it closed at the end of
I
the
do.
season? You really think
I,
so?
I do think that, yes.
I was thinking that since none of these had announcements,
I don't think
maybe
it's something that they decide, December, 5th, and then all of a sudden, all the paperwork and that's filed. I mean, I think, these discussions have been going on for a long time. What can we get rid of? What can we remove? What can we take out and replace with something else? I think, yeah, I think they've known, and there would have been enough time to let everyone get last rides.
yeah. And unfortunately, if ever there was a time to preach our message of you don't really need to buy your season pass early because you don't know the product you're going to get, this is another feather in that cap, because not only do you not know when opening day is at Kings Island, not only do you not know what the operating hours are going to be, not only do you not know if they're going to have Haunt or Winterfest or Grand Carnival or anything like that, you also don't know if your favorite ride's going to be there. I mean, if it's a B&M, it's probably safe, but what if you love riding the Bat? I would say the Bat's at risk, the Invertigo's at risk, Congo's at risk.
Drop Tower.
Drop
Monster.
Towers at risk. Timberwolf, if you really enjoy seeing that from Drop Towers.
Monsters at risk. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of rides that are, may not be there, in the foreseeable future, so when it comes to Anaconda, I understand it. If you're King's Dominion, I mean, it's an older ride, opened in 1991, was not the most popular roller coaster there. Guests still liked it, but it wasn't the most popular ride. So maybe that's their justification, for removing it. But at the same time, think about your guest, and that's just not happening anymore. And I think that's disappointing to see, because without the guest, you have nothing.
Well, and my problem with it is, you can always go back to, Walt Disney's thing of Disneyland will never be completed. It's always going to be under construction. That's great. And that's true there. But especially at the Cedar Fair, the Six Flags parks, especially Kings Island, you didn't tear down Vortex because something bigger and better is going there. You tore it down because it's too expensive to maintain.
Yeah, it
Now,
was going to
nothing.
need a new control panel and some other things. So yeah, it was removed. And I think if they had to make that decision again, they would not have done that. I think they would have realized what they were doing, but it looked good at the time, looked good on paper, right? But here we are, that was 2019, so it's 2025 next year. They've not had a replacement for that spot, and there's a void that just hasn't been filled.
Yeah, and the thing though is like if they were going to remove rides, like if that were the case, like, oh, if they're going to take out the bat, just imagine what they'd put in that spot. That's a good plot of land. But with their additions that they've had, including 2020, for hardware at least, it's been so lukewarm, so mediocre, so pedestrian that like I could see something along the lines of like a 40 free spin going in the Vortex plot. Like I can go down to my local Big Lots that's got everything 20% off because they're going out of business and get me a 40 free spin.
It's
But
just not the way to treat your guest. When you know that you're going to make these decisions and you give them no chance. And I think there might be a little bit to that where, oh, we don't want the negativity, so we're not going to announce it. Where you're getting negativity by not announcing it, you're going to get more by doing it that way. You're going to get twice the backlash because you didn't give everybody a chance to get those last rides. I don't think anyone's arguing that it was time for the ride to go. I think they're arguing about the process, how they found out about it.
yeah, and hold on, I've got to hold my mic for this one because I'm getting serious. Kings Island. If you're going to remove any rides, Don and I are going to find out before you announce it. And we're going to put it on the show. So do the right thing. If we have to find a permit, it's not going to be good.
And
this
that
is
is
not a
not the way
threat.
you and
It's
I
a
want to do
spoiler.
this show. We don't want to be, digging stuff up, or that's not our thing.
I
But
want people to know stuff though, because honestly,
we
like if
do,
they
but we don't want it to be about. I mean, we'd love to be able to say, "Hey, the park announced, and this is your last chance to get rides," and try to, talk about the memories, and just kind of make it a celebration, that, for this ride, not just, oh, well, we found the permits online, they've been filed, they're going to take it out. You're
well,
right. I
and
mean, it
think
does
if
become it
Tower
does become a
Topics
different type of show then when that happens. We don't want to see it done that way.
right, but I think that we're going to report things as they happen, like not
Right, we do.
actively, but for example, like with the Vortex thing, I don't think that if Tower Topics were around back then, it wouldn't have been a big question of this is the wrong decision. They're not doing this because they gave people the run up. People have kind of knew that ride like maybe was on borrowed time for a long time, and we probably would have talked about Vortex memories, its legacy, what could go in that spot. It would be a completely different conversation than, oh, hey, look, Warren County demolition record for the Bat roller
Yeah.
coaster.
Yeah, we would have
And
had people on the show that were on that, inaugural Vortex crew. We would have had them as guests on the show to talk about, their memories of opening that ride.
sure. But I mean, and at the same time, and it's funny how we've pivoted because the first episode of the show, we were like, we're not going to go looking through permits, we're not going to be the spoiler. But nowadays, they don't announce anything, so your announcement is when you find it on Warren County's commissioner's website.
Hmm.
So guess what? But I honestly think we're doing people a service because there is a percentage of the population that exclusively, like, a big reason why they buy their season passes, they just love to get their bat rides in or their Congo rides in or whatever. And if they're going to do this bait and switch of people assuming that those rides are going to be there next year when they're not, I think that people should know that, because if they haven't bought their season pass, they can at least be aware of what they're purchasing. I mean, Lord
Yeah.
knows they haven't released calendar yet.
No, and every day that they don't, um, concerns me a little bit more.
Yeah, knowing them, it's probably because they think they're going to get some sort of media rise out of it if they release it at a certain time. The truth is, they don't know how to do that there, so it's going to be dropped on the website. It's either going to be disappointing or not, and we're going to move on with life. Well, you and I will do an episode on it. Don't get me wrong.
Well, we're
But,
certainly talking
but
about the calendar, good, bad, and different, right?
we certainly are. But speaking of good, as opposed to bad and indifferent, Don, let's talk about Tower Topics t-shirts.
Tower Topics t-shirts. Hey, spring is just around the corner. What, 4.5, 5 months away? So it's time to, if you're a fan of the show, grab yourself a Tower Topics t-shirt. Comes in the Carolina blue, any size that you need, we can get for you. They're just $22 and includes shipping. If you're interested in one, you can do it in a couple of different ways. Let us know through our X with a direct message. It's Tower_Topics. We certainly hope that you follow us there. Or if you're not on X, you can simply send me an email. It's Don Helbig at themeparksbydon.com, and we'll send you the QR code. And once the transaction goes through, again, just $22, include shipping. Just a matter of days before you get your shirt.
Perfect. Yeah, $22 including shipping. Great deal. We love to see those shirts around. I'm Ryan Sir. That's Don Helbig. This is Tower Topics.